Hello. What follows is a very special episode of the Hallspace Podcast. I, Ritch Hall, sit down with a good friend of mine, Jim McClain, and we just gush about our love for Superman, our history with the character, and give an in-depth review of our feelings about the new Superman and Lois television show. So if you want to hear two grown men say the word Superman about 1 million times, then you come to the right place, and I really hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast. It's about connections. I'm your host, Dr. Ritch Hall, and this is a weekly conversation about whatever and however I see to connect things. For people who want to connect, chat, and learn a thing or two about a thing or two. Without further ado, let's start the show. Hello, my name is Ritch Hall. Welcome to the Hallspace Podcast, and I'm here with my good friend, the wonderful Jim McClain.
Hello,
Jim.
How are you?
Hey, so glad to have you on and talk with you today, because we are talking about what I know to be one of my favorite subjects, but I also know is one of your favorite subjects, and that is Superman.
Absolutely right.
All right, so if you could give the people your credentials, what makes you a Superman historian?
Well, let's start with Batman first, because there's some context. There's some context.
We never start with Batman.
No, we have to. It's part of my story. So my first words were Batman and Robin. I was 13 months old when the Batman Adam West TV show came on TV, right? Mm-hmm. So I was captured and captivated by comics and superheroes then. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Superman had a cartoon on Sunday mornings, the Superman and Aquaman hour. Uh-huh. And so Superman was also one of my... Batman and Superman for me are right up in they're both at the same level in the pantheon.
Yeah.
But Superman for me caught my imagination from cartoons. Mm-hmm. And then the Superboy cartoons in particular, in between the two 8-minute Supermans that bookended that cartoon, that half hour. The Superboy cartoons with Krypto, the Super Dog.
The Super Dog. I remember those.
What boy can't really appreciate having a super-powered dog? So Superman has been my favorite, right up there with Batman, since 1966.
Wow.
So, yeah. And from that point on, I mean, you had the Superman cartoon in 66, and then the Batman Superman hour the next year, because Batman became more popular. Mm-hmm. So they combined the Batman and Superman cartoons. Then you had Super Friends come.
Super Friends, I'm familiar.
And then Superman the movie in 1978. And then all of a sudden, Superman became popular. And then the Adventures of Superman with George Reeves started coming on reruns in the afternoon when I was in school.
Nice.
So I picked up a book called Superman Serial to Serial and discovered that there was so much more content out there. I had to have it all. I had to see it all. I had to digest it all. Mm-hmm. And so Superman the movie, though, really made the big difference for me. I was 14 when it came out, had just turned 14.
Okay.
And Star Wars was huge the year before. Mm-hmm. But Superman, that was something I wanted to consume since I was a little kid. I said, if you do Superman on the same level you did Star Wars, I'm in.
Right.
And so from that point on, I was hooked.
Yes. No, Donner did an amazing Superman. I believe the tagline was, "You'll believe a man can fly."
Yes.
And I remember being riveted by Christopher Reeve as a child. And just the flight scenes alone in that. For me, one of the pivotal things about my love for Superman is he's a man who flies. That's really all it takes for me. One of the first comic books my mother ever got me was just a Superman comic she bought off the rack at a grocery store. And I don't remember what issue it was. I keep meaning to look for it. But it was Superman flying through. He was in snow, I remember. And he was going through a personal crisis of some kind. And so for a majority of the issue, it was just him in the snow. But I just remember thinking, okay, so I think I love this. I know at the time I was into comics kind of, but didn't own very many. Like I said, that was the first one my mother, I remember ever buying me. But I did love the cartoons. So I love Super Friends. I love the Fleischer cartoons, the old school, Man of Steel, faster than a speeding bullet.
And I discovered
able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Absolutely. I discovered the Fleischer cartoons in that book that I was just telling you about. I had not seen them until I went to my first comic book convention in 1984.
Wow.
Ypsilanti, Michigan. Someone was playing the Fleischer cartoons on a TV. Mm-hmm. And it was the Bulleteers. I still remember which one it was. I was just standing there, goosebumps coming up on my arm, just going, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful cartoon I've ever seen.
Yes.
And they really do. They stand up.
The animation was sort of, I think, what drew me to them because I was coming up in the Hanna-Barbera era where they were cutting some corners, serious corners to throw out all this children's animation. And those were done with craft, right? They were, Superman had a weight to him when he flew. There was a sense of right. There was a sense of energy to him, there was a noirish aesthetic to it. Mm-hmm. Art Deco. So I remember just being completely in love with those cartoons. I feel like they came on TV. I feel like I know when I was young, I stayed with my grandmother a lot as part of childcare while my parents were in school. I was born when my parents were in college, and I just remember watching a lot of old TV. So Superman ended up being one of those ones that I might be able to catch that cartoon.
Yeah. What you have to remember, too, is originally they were just simply shown at the beginning of movies at the movie theater.
Yes.
So, but the thing is, that attraction was what brought people to the theaters quite often. It's like, if they had kids, they're seeing, let's say, a Gone with the Wind type movie. Yeah. The kids' attention is going to be held for a while, but that cartoon at the beginning is what's going to warm them up to the what's going to follow.
To the full movie. Yeah.
And so cartoons had a different context back in 1941. So,
yeah, definitely. And then I remember seeing some of the Reeves stuff, the George Reeves Superman, not as much just because of availability back when I was a kid. So I was coming up in the 80s and 90s when, but I do remember a lot of Super Friends, I feel like the Super Friends crossed over with Scooby-Doo or something, or at least Batman and Superman did. Or
Batman and Robin did.
Batman did for sure. Okay, that's what I'm remembering. Yeah. And then, Christopher Reeves, the Donner films that's when I thought, I absolutely love this character. Seeing that for the first time as a child. And he just had this, and one of the things I think that why Superman appeals to a lot of, comic book what we used to just be comic book geeks, right? Is that Superman's kind of this nebbish, or Clark is this nebbish, nerdy guy who takes those glasses off and suddenly he becomes the most confident, commanding person in the room. Yeah. And so it was this idea that as a nerd, you could have this sort of secret side of you that could be all the things maybe you couldn't be with your friends and family. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't be a hero. You couldn't be confident. You couldn't be strong internally. And you just needed the right situation to let it out is the way I kind of always, that's what attracted me to, the Clark Kent Superman dynamic is that, no, really, you're a good person inside. It's just other people might not understand it. They might take advantage of you. Superman back then in the comics, we're thinking golden age. He was often like pranking Lois. He had a little bit of a jokey side to him. But it's like he always had a secret. He knows he's the strongest man in the room. And so that sort of appeals to a young nerd like myself who, wishes he had. And he's got a pantheon of abilities, right? He's not at all limited in what he can do. He's got all of the powers.
What do you have to remember about Christopher Reeve's performance too in Superman the movie? I just watched it again the other day. It's something I watch frequently. And his performance as Clark Kent is really underestimated by a lot of people because there's the scene when he takes Lois out flying with a kind of cringy, can you read my mind song. But the thing is, when he comes back and he's in Lois's apartment as Clark Kent, and he's considering telling her that he's Superman.
I know where you're going. Yeah,
he takes the glasses off. And he's as Clark Kent, he slouches, and then all of a sudden he takes the glasses off and he straightens up, and his voice drops an octave, like from Lois to Lois. And it's like that change in performance is really underestimated by the audience. Right. And it harkens back to the radio show that started in 1940. In the radio show, Clayton Bud Collier did the voice of Superman. And he would start as Clark Kent. His voice would be up here, and he'd say, and this was classic, every time he wanted to change, because you're not seeing it, it's on radio. Here we are on the podcast, and I'm talking with my hands and nobody can see. Right. But every time he would change into Superman, he goes, this looks like a job for Superman. His voice would just drop.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I hear that.
And so that not very subtle thing on radio translated. Christopher Reeve did just such a great job, because then when he goes back to his Clark Kent persona, when he changes his mind, he puts the glasses back on, slouches back down, and his voice pitches back up. And it's like that is, and besides his hair parted on a different side, which is like, how do you do that?
He's Superman, some Kryptonian hair gel. But it's like that vulnerability that he shows as Clark Kent, it's like, it really does. It's like, I relate to this, and I'd love to relate to that. I'd love to relate to Superman as the strong hero. So I also, Superman, the first Superman movie is definitely one that if it comes on at all, I'm probably like, that's the end of my afternoon, right? Like I'm now watching this. If I was watching anything else, and I rarely ever watch TV that's, what do we call it? TV that's just on now. So I don't watch cable very often. I'm all streaming services. But if it so happens that I bounce into a channel where it's playing, and it doesn't play as much. When I was a kid, I feel like it played on TV a lot. Like at some point, I know I had a VHS of it, but that was back in the early HBO days where, when I was a child, early HBO days where there were certain movies that were constant rotation. So one of the reasons I know now that I love Back to the Future is because it was on constantly on HBO. And then we just taped it and watched it more. Or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was one that was on a lot. And Donner's Superman was definitely, it came on all the time. And it was just it was a go-to tape. And I remember I actually watched the Supergirl cartoon more than I am willing to admit. Not the cartoon, the movie, Supergirl, the movie.
Slater?
Yes, which is not a great movie now that I've seen it as an adult, but Kid Me watched it dozens of times, much in the same way.
When the Salkinds lost the rights to do Superman, they say, well, we still have Supergirl.
Yes.
So, they went
and
back
they just
to the well.
Right, churned out this horrible Supergirl movie. Which I do not recommend, audience. I don't tell you, do not go out and watch that movie unless you just want to laugh at a really bad movie.
I confess I have it on Blu-ray.
I mean, you're a purist.
I am.
So I know amongst those of us who literally have consumed Superman all of our lives, you're going to want to go watch it. But for the average listener who might be like, do I want to watch a Supergirl movie? No, don't.
No, you don't.
It's only for those of it's like the Star Wars Christmas special.
Holiday special?
Yeah. Just for us who love it so much we can overlook its obvious flaws. And so, yes, the Donner Superman movies, 1 and 2, I will say, had a strong affinity for 2. Definitely a lot of quotables in either movie. My wife and I still use the line, "Why do you speak to me this way? When you know I will kill you for it."
Exactly.
Which is very much we want to say that to the children. We don't actually say it, but we joke around like, why do they speak to us this way when they know we will kill them for it?
And the quotability of Superman actually leads into what we were going to talk about in Superman and Lois.
Yes.
Because I was watching it the second time. You contacted me about this while I was watching it for the first time.
Yes.
And I'm watching the show, and it's like, all of a sudden, there's no intro. We're going to dive right into it, I guess.
Sure, let's go ahead. Go ahead. Let's do it.
You're the host. You're the host.
Yes.
I'm driving the car now.
Hey, but we're talking about Superman, so I'm here for all of it. So there's no reason to ever get off the gas, man. Let's just go.
I was watching the movie again the other day, and it's like, you take it easy now, Jonathan. Remember what Doc Fry said about that heart of yours?
Oh yeah.
Right? Now go back to Superman and Lois when he goes to visit his mother. Spoiler alert. His mother has a health episode.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Fry.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's Dr. Fry.
Wow.
Dr. Fry is the doctor. I'm like, that's a nice callback. That's subtle. It's like a lot of the shows are doing that now. They're doing callbacks and they're keeping it subtle.
Right.
They're planting those Easter eggs everywhere you look.
I think they did a really good job of Easter eggs in this. I also watched it a second time, and I noticed that when Clark calls his mom, behind him on the chalkboard, it says Dr. Donner and Siegel and Schuster.
Siegel and Schuster, right?
And I was like, oh, that's a good, nicely done, gentlemen. Nicely done. Whomever was on the writing staff and the production crew who put that together. I am a fan of that kind of stuff.
I think a lot of the shows and movies have to hire somebody now to put the Easter eggs out. They just should call them the Easter Bunny.
Right.
We need the Easter Bunny. We need somebody to pull.
I'll be looking for that in the credits. Like, who's the Easter egg person? Who's the Easter Bunny for this production? Particularly for these comic book superhero productions, because some of them are so deep. And you wonder, is this a regular production staff person who was like, oh, let me do this real quick? Or was that like baked in? Like, there's no way the script writer's doing that. They've got to bang out this thing,
right?
By Monday morning. They don't have time to add all these references.
My wife and I were talking about that today. She said, that would be a job for you.
Yeah, right.
Right. Hire me. I'm in.
Right. I mean, they have to have the script continuity person. So I have to assume, you have to assume there's somebody at Marvel whose only job it is to remember all the references, right? Like, it was like, okay, so in Thor 1, we had the gauntlet. So remember when you come back to do the gauntlet again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, like, how do you not lose the thread unless you make that one person's job? Like, you show up on set just to make sure we haven't contradicted 27 other movies at this point.
Right. I wish they'd done that with Star Wars.
That's a whole nother show. We cannot go down the Star Wars well right now.
Whole nother show.
Let's not even get started. But back to Superman, and we'll just jump ahead. I want to do a little bit more retrospective on Superman, just to talk about other people who played him. Tom Welling in Smallville. I was a fan of Smallville early seasons, so I can only say about maybe the first 4 seasons out of what I think he got a 10-year. Was that 10-year 10-season run? 10. Yeah, so a really long. He was the longest person who played Superman on TV, I believe.
Yeah.
Followed by the guy who played him, Superboy.
There were 2. John James Newton and who was the other one? Oh darn, I forgot his name already. There were 2 Superboys on that.
Yes, there was first season Superboy, and then second, third, and fourth season Superboy, and I'm blanking on his name too. And I'm trying to look it up while I'm talking.
Well, while you're doing that, it was kind of funny because my wife and I were watching
Gerard Christopher.
Yeah, Gerard Christopher. That was it.
Yep.
The other day, my wife and I were watching one of those like Hallmark Christmas movies or something like that, and I see this guy. And I'm like, man, he could play Superman. And I looked it up. It was John James Newton.
Nice.
It's like the guy who played Superboy in the first season. It's like, well, he really could.
Right. Also, the result of some contract problems between the Salkinds and Warner Brothers. That was how we got the Superboy show and how we lost the Superboy show. It would have continued had they not gotten all into a fight about who owned Superboy versus Superman.
Right. And the same thing happened with DC and the Siegel estate.
Yeah, and
which is why we still don't have the Superboy cartoons on DVD, because when they released the Filmation Superman cartoons, I was like, "Where's my Superboy cartoons? They should be in here."
Right. Nope. And I watched a lot of the Superboy cartoon. I actually recently watched a retrospective one of it on YouTube, and was like, "Oh no, I remember some of these plot lines, and just hadn't thought about it." It's like one of those things that's in the back of my memory because I remember actually being obsessed with that show. Just because it's, once again, this geeky guy who's got powers secretly is saving everybody, and it was often campy. I remember, it seemed to borrow heavily from the Donner films, but it was I remember it as a pretty solid show. And when I was watching the retrospective, they were like, not every episode is great, and I'm like, I didn't anticipate it would be, particularly when you got to make 14 of them, 20 of them, 30 of them, however many.
Carrie Bates was one of the primary Superman writers at that time. They brought him along to work on the show. So there was a legit connection there to the comic world.
Nice. So, and it did a lot of comic book-esque stories. And then the last time we got Superman on TV proper for his own show was Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. Came out in 1993, lasted until 1997. I was a fan of Dean Cain. I can't say that I watched it as religiously, but I definitely was in for the first couple seasons. But I saw that more of as a drama, like a soap opera-ish Superman show. They definitely played up the romance angle of it. So it didn't quite meet the same, it didn't always have the Superman hijinks that I had come to expect. But still, I thought it was a solid show at the time.
Yeah, the costume that they used in the pilot was so much better than the one that they used in the rest of the series.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that the audience can't see, but you can. I'm wearing the trademarked,
yes.
Superman S. This is what they used for the insignia in the pilot. After that, they went to some weird one where the back end here rose up too much. I'm like, what are you doing? The first one was so much better.
Yeah.
Just the evolution of the insignia, that's another half an hour discussion.
Oh, yes. We can talk about the insignia itself. And which ones I love and which ones I don't. Like the Brandon Routh, I always thought the Brandon Routh Superman S was not right. It was a little too small in his chest.
It's too small. The S is perfect. The S
is perfect. Yes.
No, it's not. It actually ends up with a flat line at the bottom.
Yes, it doesn't have the sans serif.
But yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Christopher Reeve had one that wasn't quite perfect either. The serif on the S,
right,
instead of going at a right angle, goes at about a 60-degree angle. So there are little minor differences.
Yes, that those of us who are deep into the lore notice. Normal people wouldn't notice.
The George Reeves one was different.
Yep.
Even the Kirk Allen one from the black and white serials was different. So yeah. You got the evolution of the thing, and then you have, of course, the one from the Fleischer cartoons, which they then used in Superman and Lois.
Yes,
which was like, oh, what a nice thing to see the Fleischer cartoon.
Yes,
uniform in live action for the first time.
Right. And I want to make sure that I want to put a pin in that. We're gonna go back to that opening scene of Superman, but real quick before we're done, we got to talk about our on-screen Supermans. I will always be a Christopher Reeve fan, so he's top tier. Brandon Routh was just doing to me Christopher Reeve, unfortunately, because that's all that Singer wanted from him.
I watched that movie today.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there are some really, really strong parts to it. The airplane rescue
Amazing.
is my favorite superhero piece of film in all history.
Yes.
The airplane rescue is Superman. That's what it is.
Yes. No, genuinely thrilling, powerful. He's trying to solve a real world problem in action using his power sets. I definitely will always. And honestly, I thought Brandon Routh had some of the best flying scenes I'd ever seen. If nothing else, because he could 360. I will always remember from the commercial for that. There's the scene where he's flying through Metropolis and glass falls, and he just pivots on his back,
turns around, and he uses
his eye beams, and I'm like, and that blew my mind. I don't know, like I said, Superman flying is always the thing that gets me going, but like the fact that he pivoted over on his back and does that, it's like, who thought of that? Like, it's sort of like, you don't realize there have been boundaries to what you thought Superman could do until the next person transcends them a bit. And you're like, oh, he could, of course, he should be moving in 360 degrees as if he's underwater. Yes.
And it was probably a storyboard artist who came up with that, and they probably didn't get credit for it at all. Right. I've discovered in the time I've been doing comics is that a lot of people come up with stuff, they have roles. Like, for example, a friend of mine named Chuck Wojciechowicz did the storyboarding for Deadpool. The beginning of Deadpool with the third, how many bullets he had. He storyboarded everything from jumping off the bridge to all the shooting and that whole thing. Got no credit for it whatsoever. No writing credit. Barely got a credit for storyboard artists. Right.
And it's just like, and they'll just think the writer and the director are the geniuses on this thing.
He has the boards. He has the boards that he created. And it's an iconic sequence. It just is. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm guessing that some storyboard artist said, of course he can turn. Just like you just said, of course he can turn and do that.
Yeah. Because they're actually thinking of it in 3 dimensions. Like, I think in terms, like as a relatively, what's what I'm looking for, amateur writer myself, it's like you think sometimes like, oh, the character does this in fight scene. But, you need those people who are genuinely thinking, how does a body move in space to sort of solve the problem of what it's going to look like. And like I said, that blew my mind. And it's one of the standout moments of that movie to me. The airplane scene being at the top. Henry Cavill, I want to like. I don't know why I want to like. Henry Cavill's done some amazing work and a lot of other things. There's some moments with him where I'm like, okay, Superman's back there. But I always have seen Henry Cavill as Superman the Thug. Which,
I like the actor just fine. I just don't like the way they've written him.
Yes.
I mean, and when he does that geeky Clark Kent grin at the end of Man of Steel, that's good acting.
Right.
He's fine in the role.
Right.
It's just what they wrote for him was not Superman.
And like I said,
I call him the alien Kal-El. I don't refer to that character as Superman.
I could see that. Oh my God. It's just occurring to me that me, you, and Terry should definitely do the Snyder Cut, because I know he will rant about that.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. Yeah.
Right. We should totally get on and do that one.
Yeah.
Because that's another opportunity to go back to the well. I came out of Man of Steel liking it, but like having all these internal like conflicts, like what's happened? Like I want to like this for some reasons. You know, the he flies for the first time scene. There's a lot of good in there. There's a couple of other moments where it's like, you know, similar to this, I like, and similar to the show we're going to talk about because at this point we're very close to the need for a break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the show proper and get into it. But like, there's that Zod attacks his mom, and he like takes him on, and he's like, "Don't go after my mother." Like, there are pieces of, okay, this is who. If you got 15 movies, you know, Superman will become maybe closer to the Superman I enjoy, but it was just a big dumb punching guy in Man of Steel, and and then to follow that up with Batman versus Superman, where it's like this dude is making all sorts of non-Superman related mistakes.
Right. Well, and the thing about Man of Steel that got me is that I was hardcore into the movie. I thought the costume was fine.
Right.
People were going, he needs the trunks. It's like, no, just
no, it's fine. It's fine. I'll take it.
We're good.
Yeah, we're still getting Superman.
The glyph for the symbol was kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
The art direction of Krypton, I was totally in.
Yeah.
The part that killed me was when Pa Kent takes him aside, you know, after he saves the kids on the bus.
Oh, yep.
He goes, He goes, what was I supposed to do? Let them die? And Pa Kent goes, maybe. I went, no.
Yep. That was where it lost me.
It took me right out of the movie.
Right. Well, because that's the point where it defies genuinely. The mythology of Superman is creature with great strength and abilities, learns small town values, and through that learns he has to give his talents to the world.
Right.
Now, I understand in some ways that Zack Snyder is building this character to be, well, small town values have changed. So there's a lot more paranoia and sort of xenophobia and insularness to small town values now. But it's like, no, but that's not Superman. He's the best of
people die.
Superman never. He can never cause a death, and he can never let a person die.
Right.
Because that would genuinely destroy him.
And taking that to the end of the movie with the neck snapping.
Yes.
Like, I'm sitting there in the theater. What was it, 2013? Mm-hmm. So my daughter was 7.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there in the theater. I'm sitting there. My wife's sitting there. My daughter's sitting on the opposite side of my wife from me. And when the neck snapping scene comes up, my wife has the sense to cover my daughter's eyes. And I was like, oh, no, he's not going to.
Yeah.
Did.
Yeah.
And for, you know, a year after that, people are debating left and right on the internet and whatnot. And they're saying, like, well, he didn't have any choice. Okay,
Superman always has a choice.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
The writers put him in a position where he didn't have a choice. The writers wanted Superman to kill someone.
Yes. On this we agree.
You don't get Superman. You're done.
Yeah. Right. Because Superman is a guy with, like, he's got 18 different abilities. He has always got to be better than me as a human being. So if you put him in the impossible scenario, he does not just do what I would do. He does not think, you know, he's not John McClain. I got to shoot this person in the face. He is, well, I've got all these abilities. I've got to find a way. Right.
But, and I love to quote Jamal Igle on this. Jamal Igle is one of my favorite writers and artists. He's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And he said, about Man of Steel, he said, the first appearance of Superman in public should not be the worst day in human history.
Right. Right.
Metropolis was like buildings falling down.
Decimated.
It was 9/11 times 12.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That should not be the association people make with say, you remember with Superman first? How could we forget he destroyed Metropolis?
Right. And once again, that's the writers really wanting to create a movie where, like, instead of, you know, grandeur and hope, it's and I remember thinking in terms of, like, this threat that they've created, like these Kryptonians coming back and looking for Kal-El and needing something from him, needing the codex, like, that's a novel approach. I would never have thought of that. And it does create this situation where he has to reveal himself. Particularly in the scenario they've set up where he's been in hiding for, you know, most of his adult life. But then we get to they just wanted a reason to blow some stuff up. And it's like, and I remember just, like I said, while I was on the roller coaster, I was like, well, I mean, it's not that bad. And then we get to the end and I'm like, he never should have done that. He never should have snapped a guy's neck. Like, Superman's the guy who throws people into the Phantom Zone. Like, that's, you know, a person who's read his history knows he's got a million ways to stop a bad guy that we all think we should just put down. And then, like I said, left with a pit in my stomach that was awesome in a way, but also very not awesome. And like I said, I wanted to like Cavill. I feel like if you gave him the right movie, he'd have a good time. And then Superman versus Batman was definitely, okay, so they're never going to make good decisions with this guy.
Yeah, because they even said, okay, he's going to tone it back now. He's going to be more about preserving life. And the first thing you see is him facing that general. Lois gets him, you know, releases her grip on him.
And he murders that guy. He turns him into paste.
5 brick walls. Like,
right. Turns him into paste. Yeah. Which is like, okay, we get he's powerful, but also like Superman doesn't do that, ladies and gentlemen.
And I actually came up with the best, the thing that would have fixed that and would have brought the audience cheering, right? Mm-hmm. It's like he'd be holding the gun to Lois, he would just snatch it out of his hand at super speed and say, General, would you care to step outside?
Right. That's the Superman we know. That's
Superman 2. There it is.
Right. And it's a great callback.
That's all you had to do.
Yeah. And then, so the second mistake he makes in Batman versus Superman, where I was like, this is not Superman, is Lex has him essentially what they want us to believe is over a barrel, where he's like, I've got your mom. And he's showing him pictures. And I can't for the life of me understand why Superman's even still listening to this guy talk. Like, the Superman I know will have this guy in jail and could just find his mom by her heartbeat. And you've already established in the movie that when he loves someone, he can cross the planet to find them. Like, so you don't open with that.
He found Lois fast enough, didn't he?
Right. He found Lois in a bunker.
Let me push her off the building. Oh, he'll catch her no matter where he is in the world.
Right.
So obviously he can do that.
Right. And so you can't set up those rules and then say, I can also kidnap your mom and you'll never know. It's like, there's no way that works based on the rules of your own movie.
It's not like she was kept in some sound baffling room. It's like
right.
Batman found her in 12 seconds.
Right. And so, and Superman's a guy who can solve 7 problems at once. He's got all these abilities. Yeah. So, those are my mini rants about the Cavill era of Superman. I really want the guy to be in a movie where he can do well with the character, because I think he's got the look, he can do the tone. But he just has not been given the opportunity, and that's my. And I remember feeling like Snyder was going to get a hold of the Superman property, and he was going to do something awesome with it. And he did awesome according to him, but not according to the lens through which I see Superman. And I think that's one of the things about Superman is, as a character that's lasted this long, there are so many different iterations of him, so many different takes, and each one is different. Some of them good, some of them not. But I do think it's definitely everybody gets their own shot at him, I guess, which I don't always appreciate.
But each iteration adds more to the mythology. So, for example, the radio show introduced Jimmy Olsen and Barry White and Kryptonite. Lots of things came from. He flew for the first time on radio. Not in the comic books.
Because they needed him to get from place to place. Yeah. Right.
And not only that, when he said up and away, it was to let the radio listener know that he was about to fly.
Yeah.
So it was very, very simple. But the thing is, each iteration brought something new to the table and added to the mythos. So, like, for example, we're talking about the Donner film. It's like Ma and Pa Kent always died together. They always died either within a day of each other or at the same time. And we were introduced to the idea that Pa Kent was going to die of a heart attack. Now we've seen that a number of different times.
Yes.
That Pa Kent dies first and he's still taking care of Ma.
Right.
And that's fine.
Right.
That's another interpretation of the character, and it grows upon that. And it's like there's a pyramid. It builds right up upon it.
Yeah.
But it's like then there are some takes that just go absolutely off the rails. Pa Kent dying in that tornado was like, what?
Pa Kent should never die in a tornado.
It's like, no, stay back there. Don't reveal your secret. No, you're my dad. Sorry.
Right. Right. And these people will, I mean, those of us who know comic books, it's like you can come up with a million reasons why people would not see him save his father, or even see it and not be able to mentally understand what happened.
Or like in Spider-Man 2, don't worry, we'll keep your secret. Right. You're watching Spider-Man 2 and you see that happen, you're like, that's beautiful.
Right.
It's like, he's no older than my kid. That's the kind of scene you want, not stay back and let me die for a dog. Right. And crazy.
Right. And the dog didn't even die. Yeah. They saved the dog, killed the dad. What's interesting about that is that's also a key that I'm making a connection here. The Spider-Man movies, particularly the first three, what's the guy's name? The director.
Sam Raimi.
I couldn't find it in my head. Raimi's movies made New York a character.
Yeah.
Whereas Smallville wasn't quite a character in Man of Steel. Like there wasn't really time for it. It was a setting, but not a character where it's like you even know who any of the people in the town's names are that aren't Kent, you know?
Well, and it's like they go to Pete Ross working at the IHOP or whatever. And it's like, he gives them right up. It's like, here you go, Lois, go talk to them. She lives over there.
Right. Yeah, if you want to know where the weirdness comes from, go over to the Kit Farm. It's been weird stuff happening over there all the time. And then they destroy his IHOP. Because who cares, right? Small town America can totally take this blow. That was definitely the Pa Kent can never die from Pa Kent can't die from anything that isn't health related, because that speaks to the impotence of Superman. He could do so many great things, but he can't save his own dad from his own heart.
Added in 1978, and it really actually does work, even though it hadn't been done for the previous 40 years. It's okay. Right. So to enjoy Superman, you have to be able to accept all of these iterations as what they are. And
because usually there's a core in there of who the character is, which is, truth, justice. I'm going to say the American way, but I have issues with that part of the statement.
Don't say it in a cynical way. Truth.
Right.
What really is the American way, not what people claim is the American way.
Right. And that he is a hopeful character. He is always there is always a way with Superman. He's got these abilities, but that's not even what makes him great. And to speak to Terry Huddleston, friend of the show, podcast co-host, he always says that Captain America, the first Captain America, had one of the best lines that should be Superman's line, which was, "I'm just a kid from Brooklyn." Essentially, it's like Superman should just be, "I'm just a kid from Smallville who just happens to have abilities that can help me solve problems." And I definitely think of that as, no, that's definitely the core of a character like Superman. He doesn't change so much as, you can put him in some kind of conflicts, but really it's about this kid from Smallville goes to the big city and takes on big city problems.
And at some point, I would like to talk about the Superman novels that came out in around the time of Superman the movie. Have you read them?
I have not.
By Elliot F. Magan? Okay, we're going to need some minutes for that one.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, I thought maybe you want to go to your break.
Oh, yeah. I should go to my break. My timer, you can't see it, but it's telling me we should definitely do the break. So we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back on the Hallspace Podcast. So let me tell you about Anchor Podcast. It's the podcasting service that I use, Anchor.fm is the easiest way to make a podcast, and there are many different reasons why, but foremost is it's free. So you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of equipment. If you have a phone or a computer and a microphone, you can record and edit your podcast right on your phone or computer. So that's one major benefit, as well as the fact that they'll distribute your podcast to several different podcasting sites for you. Not only can your podcast be found on Anchor, it can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast as well. So you don't have to worry about going to all those different sites and setting yourself up. They'll do it for you. You can also make some money on your podcast. Say you have a podcast that only 5 people listen to on a regular basis. They don't limit you on how many subscribers you have to have in order to be able to make a little bit of change for your podcast to keep yourself going. So pretty much everything you need to start a podcast can be found at Anchor.fm. So go download the app either in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or go to Anchor.fm to get started. And I guarantee you, it'll make things so much easier for you, like it has for me. All right, so we're back, the Hallspace Podcast. I'm Ritch Hall with my co-host, Jim McClain.
Nice to be here.
Fellow Superman connoisseur. You were going to talk about the Superman novels that I did not even know existed.
You're going to love this. So when Superman the movie came out in December 1978, they were quickly followed by a Superman tie-in book called Superman the Last Son of Krypton, which is a novel by Elliot S. Maggin, who is one of the primary Superman writers, along with Carrie Bates, Marty Pascal.
I'm familiar with that name, yeah.
In the 70s. So this book came out, and it has a little black and white photo section in the center of photos from Superman the movie. I was fully expecting it simply to be a novelization of the film. It's not. It was the Superman of the time. This was the story about Superman when he worked for Galaxy Broadcasting as a television reporter. It was essentially the continuity of Superman in the comics at that period. So it was telling the story from the very beginning with the origin of Superman, but with an added twist to it. Now, you have to have origin stories for Superman, and there are many throughout the years, right?
Yeah.
So many. And once again, they all these iterations build upon each other.
Right.
This one was pretty good and very specific in that there was a little craft that preceded Kal-El's rocket to Earth to seek out the smartest man on the planet to raise Kal-El as his son. It finds Albert Einstein. Now, of course, Albert Einstein died in 1955, so this actually had to happen before that. And at the time, those numbers worked. It obviously wouldn't now. So this little communication device finds Albert Einstein and says, okay, this rocket's coming on this date, this, and here and here and here. Albert Einstein is old by this point and knows he can't raise this child. So what does he do? He finds people who are suitable to raise this child. He goes to Smallville. He starts snooping around. He finds the Kents. And he arranges for them to buy a tractor from him. That just happens to be where the rocket was going to come down.
Interesting.
So it added what I thought was a pretty good twist to it, because Albert Einstein goes, more important than being raised by the smartest man in the world, you want to be raised by good people in the world. And so he looks for salt of the earth farmer types, because where it's going to come down. And then it's a story basically that just takes advantage of the wonderful world that was Superman back then. I mean, the ridiculousness of aliens and his travels. He could see, here, let me look across the galaxy. He had no limits on his powers. But it was really a good story about an alien who wanted to duplicate planets using essentially a big Xerox machine. Really, it's a comic book plot for sure. But
it sounds like one of the best kinds, the really broad plots.
And he actually teams up with Lex Luthor, and this is at the time when Lex Luthor grew up with him in Smallville, and they became
I remember
enemies.
That iteration.
They became enemies when Superboy blew out a fire in a lab that he had built for Luthor to do scientific experiments, and Luthor's hair fell out.
Lost his hair. I remember. It was about vanity.
So but Luthor and Superman team up, and it really goes into the good characterization of Lex Luthor and the Ritch characterization. He wasn't just some mad scientist. He had a whole bunch of goals, and he had very odd, eclectic tastes. It really, really dove into the character where you never got to see it in the comic books.
Interesting. Yeah.
The novel was then succeeded by another one in 1980 when Superman 2 came out, and that was called Superman Miracle Monday, where Superman literally goes up against a demon who's trying to take his soul.
Yeah, interesting.
And that one was also good, and it also provided, and this ties into what we were going to talk about. It ties into how Superman becomes Superman, and how he literally, as Superboy, was sitting on the moon, looking at the Earth, and wondering what it means to be a Superboy, or in the future, a Superman.
Yeah.
So going into that deep soul-searching description, it was something we didn't get in the comics very much. They didn't have time for that. We had to go punch somebody.
Right. The contemplative Superman.
And they even get into the idea that of how Lex Luthor was misguided, how he could have very easily turned and gone the other way. And I'm telling you,
that's always the tragedy of Lex Luthor. When people get it right, they could have been friends if only Lex Luthor's ego had allowed it. Yeah.
And with both of these novels, Lex Luthor doesn't kill anybody. He never killed anybody. Obviously, that changed with Superman the movie when they killed the guy, to get the meteorite.
Yeah.
And in fact, I still remember being stunned by that. It's like, what? Luthor killed somebody? It's like, the thing. But those two novels, it's a pity that there weren't more of them, because they were actually really good, and they added to my understanding of the character in a way that. And explaining how his heat vision worked with an active node in his optic nerves and stuff like that.
Nice.
Actually emitting X-rays instead of just being able to see through things because they're not dense. There were pseudo-scientific power descriptions that really worked for me as a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. So
Yes. I know Grant Morrison. Was it Grant Morrison or Warren Ellis? One of them were one of the first that told me how his super strength and powers work, that he can manipulate gravity essentially. I forget which one, but I always loved the pseudo-scientific explanation for his abilities, and it's sort of in my head canon. It's like, oh, so he can do this because he can manipulate gravity. I think in the 90s, they had more, when Superboy came out after the death of Superman, they talked about Superboy had tactile telekinesis, which is what they believed was part of the reason that he could do some of the things that he could do. But I always preferred that he can manipulate gravity. That explains why he's super strong. In part, why he can lift things that are often way bigger than him, why he can fly, why he can move at certain speeds. That's always been my internal reason for it. We haven't talked as much about the comics because I feel like that's just that we'll be here forever trying to talk about that. I do want to say briefly, because I do feel like it influences what we're talking about today. All-Star Superman is my favorite Superman comic of all. Once again, Grant Morrison just firing on all cylinders as he tells what has been, I think, to date, one of the best Superman stories. Yeah. It's the final days of Superman, the final acts of Superman. He's Superman's dying because of exposure to the sun as the result of Lex Luthor, who has another plan in motion. And Superman just knows he's got this, he's been told this prophecy. He's going to perform these deeds, and you slowly but surely each issue watch him perform these deeds. And each one sort of helps to define sort of the contemporary Superman. He's a hopeful figure. He's a very well-connected. He's got friends. He's got family. And everybody loves him. They're, the criminals, the evil people hate him. Lex can look Clark Kent in the eye, even without the glasses, and not know he's looking at Clark Kent, in part because of the ego stuff.
Right.
And it really brings home a lot of what I think of as some of the best themes of what makes a Superman story work. And definitely you can see the shades of it in what is borrowed to make the show Superman and Lois, which, the first 5 minutes of Superman and Lois is pretty much the first 2 pages of All-Star Superman. You don't have to tell the full origin. You could just slam together some shots, do some montage shots, and from that they will gather, we're just learning about rocket falls to Earth, picked up by a family, and raised to be the most powerful being on the planet.
Everybody knows the story already.
Right. You don't have to tell the whole thing.
Uncle Ben doesn't have to die every time.
Right.
Just like Spider-Man, yeah.
Right.
We know how it works.
We don't have to get him shot every movie. Or Batman's parents, right? They love shooting Batman's parents in that alley. It's just, you got to have that little bit of torture porn.
How many different ways can we do it? It's like
right. Okay, we get it.
Frank Miller added the pearls, and next thing you know, pearls. Oh
Yes.
Yeah, and I think one of the best parts about All-Star Superman that maybe you wouldn't appreciate because you're so much younger than I am, is that how much Silver Age stuff they pulled. Grant Morrison pulled into it.
Yes.
Silliness back in the 60s. But I love that silliness.
No, I'm
that whimsy of Superman. But in today's audience looks at it and goes, "Oh, come on!"
Right.
No, everything is valid in Grant Morrison's writing. Right. He'll pull it out. I don't care. I'll make it work.
Yes. Yeah, and I can appreciate that.
Here's Hercules and Samson. They were rivals back. And it's like there's silliness. That's okay. It's in Superman's world. It all exists.
It all exists. And I definitely, as a person who read a lot of, I remember from the library. So random story about me. After school, my mom would have us walk to the library, and that's where she'd pick us up. Like, she knew we'd be essentially, that was our daycare for a number of years in grade school, which, these days would be considered child neglect, but whatever. And so they had omnibuses. I remember they had Golden Age. Like, I remember reading old black and white Batman issues and Superman issues. And just like, that's what I would do. I'd find a corner and want to do that until it was time to go. And I remember like these stories would just kind of be like, that's how I knew like Superman would always be pranking Lois. Like, I can't be Clark Kent because I'm also over here. And, like he'd just be pulling all these tricks, and he'd use his powers in these weird ways. And the supervillains would be kind of wacky. And Superman was often very insecure, in this way that modern Superman isn't allowed to be. It's like, oh no, I'm devastated by this, in a way that you'd never see, more contemporary Superman ever written. What if she doesn't like me? And it's like, oh, Superman, she's definitely gonna like you. You're Superman. But so I did appreciate that Grant Morrison pulled from so many of those stories and I remember as I'm getting the issues, because I bought those issues individually when All-Star Superman came out, I would see the aesthetic of like the two Supermen who come to town, or Samson and Hercules, and I'd be like, well, this seems dumb. And then I read it and I'm like, okay, so I forgive almost immediately. Like, absolutely, that's right. I do remember these used to be quirky, weird stories that I love no matter how they look. So yeah.
One of the things I indulged in with the pandemic is the DC Universe app. And in the DC Universe app, I am digging into some old Superman stories, and I'm loving the Superman stories. Nice. Like, a lot of the Batman ones I had already read, because I actually collected those, and to a point I had a run going back to the time of my birth in 1964. Wow. So I had a lot of the old Batman books, but the Superman ones, I just hadn't gone that route yet. So I'm reading a lot of the old 50s and 60s stuff that's like, oh, this is so bad, it's great. It's a lot childish. I remember reading, I would read the Batmite stories, I would read the Batgirl and Batwoman, you know what I mean? Like, I remember a lot of, I don't remember like the details of it, but I do remember like when I close my eyes, I could see some of the imagery of, oh, so they, they're running together, and Batgirl has a motorcycle, and Batwoman has a, they were just weird, quirky, they barely make sense, but to kid me, I was loving every second of it. And part of me now, as we're talking about it, it's like, well, how do I get access to those stories again? Maybe I'll have to go the DC app, because I haven't looked at any of that stuff in 30 years. There's so much good stuff there. I'm really, really enjoying that. I remember, like I said, I would just sit down and digest them. Like I would have to read from cover to cover. It's an omnibus. I'm reading forever, but I'm like devoted at that time, back when I had way more free time.
Every year, 10 million content creators create without engagement. Another 5 million creators don't even have a Patreon. I've been asked if, after witnessing this god-awful misery for the last 17 years, could I have ever gotten used to seeing creators this destitute? How could anyone with eyes and ears and a heart get used to these conditions? The loneliness of a live hair tutorial video with only 2 watchers, or hilarious political tweets with only 6 likes, or craft beer reviews with no subscribers, or a thirst trap photo with only 1 creepy dude comment. It's enough to make the angels cry. I can't get used to this any more than you can, but we can do something about it. I've given 17 years of my life to social media, and I would give 100 more, scrolling daily. All it takes is 1 like, 1 simple double tap, and the time it takes to subscribe. Your likes could encourage an otherwise doomed fitness instructor. You could put more life into a socially awkward 90s sitcom reviewer, or nourish self-esteem to a life coach, or sustain a comedian who isn't Tony Baker trying to make animal voiceover videos. If you like, share, and subscribe right now, you can get something else. A thank you letter from a creator. A letter that says something like, "Dear friend, I was very sick and could not get out of my bed, but now I am back to creating again, and there will be many more videos for you. Also, I bought a Maserati." Signed, Kev on Stage. Can you think of a better reason to like, share, and subscribe right now than to help a SoundCloud producer sell trap beats during a pandemic? Like, share, and subscribe today, and you too can save a content creator from a desolate fate.
And no children. So let's get into, let's transition over to the new television show, Superman and Lois. This is what, like I said, I watched the show. What's funny is you were watching it. I had an hour in my day where I sat down and had just watched the show, and I immediately reached out to you and said, we have to talk about the show. And do you mind if we talk about it on air? Because I feel like this will be a good conversation, because I was just, that was the Superman I wanted. You know what I mean? That's the Superman I've been waiting on since, I guess, Superman and Lois. I don't know when I last saw this iteration of Superman.
Right. It's a great show. I mean, the first thing that struck me is in the opening 2 minutes when he saves the kid from the car coming over the rail. It's a PT Cruiser. I went, that's perfect. It's not only that, it's green. Just like the cover of Action Comics #1. Now, yes, mind you, in Superman Returns, they did the iconic pose with a Mustang.
Yeah, you're right.
But a PT Cruiser, that's perfect.
Perfect. Right. It fits the aesthetic perfectly. And
handing the cat back to the, here you go, friend. You know,
yeah, right. He stops, handed it to him. And he says, "Thanks, Superman. Nice costume." But he says, "Thank you. My mom made it for me." And that to me is like, that's quintessential super. You in 3 seconds gave me the Superman I've always wanted. Right there.
It was the Luke Skywalker comes to the rescue in the Mandalorian moment.
Right.
Oh, this is what we've been missing.
Somebody gets the Superman. Right.
And it's like that's Superman. It's like not mean guy who breaks necks and does all the other stuff.
Right. Superman the thug who, if you make him mad, he might impale your truck. Using the infrastructure of the town, like, hey, they need that electricity here.
I wonder how they fix that.
Right. You just created like 4 different contractors have to come to this scene to solve this problem, buddy. Like, but within 2 minutes, you're going like, oh, I'm in. Good. Right? He's wearing the Fleischer costume. Like the second I saw the black and the S, I was like, wait, that's not. Oh my God, they're like, okay, all the continuity of Superman is entrenched in this. Like, if you can think of a Superman story, it's in the background. We'll tell you how fuzzy it should be and how, realistic it's going to be.
Kicking back to the Fleischer cartoons, it's like, oh, well, this was our Captain America in the silly costume moment from Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yeah.
You want the authentic Captain America costume? We'll give it to you, but you're not going to like it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you know what? Now that I've seen it, you've sated my
need for it.
Now. I don't need to see the authentic costume anymore.
But thank you for giving it to me. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Right?
And this was that moment. It's like, you can do what you want with the textured uniform and the high neck and the long. That's fine now. You gave me something.
Right. You can play around with it.
You gave me that little nudge. You gave me the acknowledgement. You gave me the wink. Mm-hmm. Now you can go do what you want. That was a smart thing to do.
Yes. I mean, and I think in piggybacking on that sentiment, I think when Tyler Hoechlin, I don't know how to say his last name, showed up in Supergirl, I remember like, okay, so I'm going to have to watch Supergirl because Superman's showing up in it. And I had kind of watched it with the CW shows. I tend to pop in when they do the crossovers, but Supergirl I never embraced the Supergirl show at all. There were some things about just the actress and the setups and stuff that I was like, maybe. But me and the CW have a love-hate relationship. Like I loved the first season of The Flash. I loved the first season of the Arrow. I remember thinking, Arrow's really killing people. First season, when he hits like the first person in the chest with an arrow, I'm like, he's killing dudes.
And it wasn't just a few; it was like thugs who just happened to be there. It's like, okay, I'm pretty sure he didn't do anything to deserve to die yet.
He's got to go. He's with the bad guys.
They lost me on that one. I'm like, wow.
Well, I mean, so Arrow was. And I think that's one thing they did right with Arrow and Flash was they realized pretty quickly, we have Batman and Superman here, so we'll just make them the CW Batman. Like Arrow, the first season is basically Batman Origins, Batman Year One,
right?
Which is why it was so easy to love, because it was like, okay, this dude looks like an action figure, and he's doing Batman stuff with arrows.
And you got the cave with the computers and
right. And then you have, Superman shows up in that world and you're like, oh crap, are they going to give me like for real Superman? And from the minute he showed up there, he was pretty much okay, he's a serviceable Superman.
Yeah.
He had the optimism. He had the hopefulness. He smiled. That for me is key. Now you've seen the comic books that I create. On every single cover, the heroes smile.
Right. That's required for me. It's like, Batman even smiles once in a while back in my day,
Right. No.
It wasn't always grimdark. And Tyler, I think he handles that part really well. In fact, to the point where it's almost goofy sometimes. And I like that. It's good.
Right. Well, Superman's kind of supposed to be a little goofy. Like, he's got to be, he's a bit of a big lug. You know what I mean? Like, that's just to me how he works. He should never be grim and he should never be angsty, but he can be kind of like, all right, guys, whatever. That's what makes Superman work.
The big complaint that I keep seeing is that people say, oh, he's got a 5 o'clock shadow all the time. Da, 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 da. And I watched that carefully and it's like, you know what? He does. But here's what else I noticed, and see if you noticed it too. His sideburns are not clipped evenly on the side of his hairstyle, right?
Huh.
I'm like, if you were shaving with heat vision and a mirror, made of the metal from your ship, you're not going to have a close shave.
You don't get a clean shave. Yeah.
And you're not going to have, scalloped sideburns. I'm like, that's actually probably what it might look like. I don't know if that's where they're going with it.
Right.
If they did, it would be perfect. It's like, because it's like, he's running around a little scruffy like Don Johnson back in the 80s. So what?
Yeah. Like, he still captures so much more of the Superman aesthetic. Like he's got the presence, right? Like I said, he's definitely got the confidence, and the little bit of swagger, and the just don't mess with me. I mean it. Which is also very interesting if we're talking about the show, how that changes when he's at home, when he's Clark, when he's with his kids.
Yeah.
And they do it, like I said, they do a really great job. They give you the entire history of where Superman is based on your foreknowledge in 5 minutes. Like in 5 minutes, you're like, okay, this is where the show is. If you know a little bit about Superman, you'll be able to figure out the rest from here.
Right.
So I was definitely appreciative of that. So it was like from space, lived in Smallville, dad dies, moves to Metropolis, meets Lois, tells Lois and him have kids. 5 minutes of show, and they've gotten all that out of the way.
Yeah. And the way and once again, so we've already seen Superman Returns where he has a son.
Yep.
Right. We've already seen that.
I had so many feelings about at the time.
And that kid's 21 now, by the way.
Oh my God.
I just looked it up. He's on Young and the Restless. I'm like, you're kidding me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's 21.
Wow.
But then we have
That's
the new
weird.
Jonathan character in the comics. And who starts off as a little one, then all of a sudden he's a teenager.
They age him up because they don't want to deal with the middle of child rearing. Yeah.
And I'm watching this going like, okay, this is a take I'm actually interested to see, because once again, we've seen 100 different iterations of Superman at this point.
Yes.
That's another one. I'm interested to see where they go with this.
I always had my reservations because I'm from the superheroes don't have kids era, which is weird because now I'm a guy with kids and I now understand that world a lot better. But I remember at first it was like Superman with twins. I don't know. I just want to see him doing Superman stuff. And within a few minutes of his interactions with them, it's hard not to make teenagers annoying because by their nature, teenagers can be annoying. But I'm like,
you don't say.
Yeah. But I'm also like, you know what? All right. Okay. I get it. He's got one son who's a bit of a lunk and is, just immediately likable. And then he's got another son who's a complete introvert. And because Clark had to be an introvert, it's like he kind of gets him, but also still feels distant. And I think they play that really well. Like they with very little screen time, they kind of sold this. There's a complex dynamic in this household. And he's got one son who it's like, yeah, no, we're good. We're partners. We're buddies. And sometimes he's a little vapid, and I wish he was a little bit deeper as a person. And then he's got this other kid who's like, he's completely internal, and I don't know what to do with him, but I'm also trying to give him space because I remember how I was at that age. Right. But I still feel like I'm afraid. And then they set up we don't know which one has powers. Do they both have powers? We pretty much think it's Jonathan because he's the extrovert. He's
the jock, and it's like when Lois says, "Do you ever see him throw a deep route?" It's like, well, maybe there's something there. And they had the thing where he broke the rope that was with the tire hanging from it. So they're leading you in that direction, and they switch.
Yeah, and we're still not sure. I mean, Jonathan. I mean, it's likely they're just holding that off for like season finale situation. Right.
I think the dynamic between the brothers is also good, where it's a love-hate relationship because
it's very sibling. Yeah,
that's siblings. That's
right. Oh yeah. Oh no, I got 3 kids. I know that all too well. And they love each other, hate each other.
When Jordan's seeing his brother get the crap beat out of him, it's like, oh no, that's my brother.
Right. I can talk bad about him, but don't you dare put your hands on him. Yeah.
Right.
And even gets jumped, trying to he loses a fight trying to protect his brother.
Yep. And so
we'll get to the quarry in a second.
Okay.
I want to say the iceberg scene.
Once again, 1970s. That's a perfect
classic Superman.
That's a Bronze Age. That's a Bronze Age move right there. Yeah.
Right. I remember. So watching it the first time, I was like, "What's he gonna do with these powers? He's definitely not flying away. Oh, he's freezing the ice. Oh, he's gonna dive underwater. Like I'm like, totally. This is Superman. This is This is you guys get Superman. This is how he solves problems. He realizes he can't brute force. I will say one of my quibbles with that scene, Superman landings. They're going a little too Snyderverse. Superman does not plop.
He doesn't have to.
He understands his whole thing is finesse. He's got to be finesse, right? They use that trick in what's the name of that Will Smith movie? Hancock. Yes. The idea that Hancock was this kind of brutish. He had these powers forever, but never really learned to finesse them. And so he always had bad landings or Great American Hero, right? Where he never knew how to land, right? Like that's just flying is one thing, landing's another. And so we all get that. Superman, he can he's honed his skill over time that he's like he can land like a butterfly on any surface if he wants to. So I know they're doing it for power and for the audience, but that's a part of me that's like, he doesn't need to Snyder land every time he lands.
Right.
Although the entire show's pulling a lot of Snyder aesthetic, the way they're lighting it and all that.
Some of the music too.
Yeah. And I'm forgiving them for that in that way that they're using so many elements of the best parts of Superman to make this, once again, it's somewhat meta. The show is kind of this, let's take all the pieces, throw them together in a pot and see what really good soup comes out of it. Right. But that's my one, when he did the landing the second time, when he landed inside the thing, I was like, well, Superman, slow it down. You're landing inside of a nuclear reactor. We did the second time. I'm like, okay, Superman, there are people out here. And also they don't need to repave this just because you decided to land here.
Exactly.
of what you're doing. The second landing didn't even require that much. Dude, just drift down. But also we've seen it 1,000 times. So maybe they thought, no, we want to give it some, I don't know, whatever. The Snyder-esque landings definitely had me in my feelings. It's going to be an FX heavy show. They're doing the special effects so far pretty good. The iceberg was the only thing, how do you light an iceberg at night? So I'm thinking the FX guys were like, we just got to turn this in on Monday. And it's like there's little dodgy effects on the iceberg itself as it lowers into, because mentally, how do we understand what that's supposed to look like? how do you light a thing like that? I watch a lot of FX Reacts on YouTube. And so now I have some of that stuff in my head as I try to, as I watch things like this, like how does the FX person solve this problem with, only 2-week turnaround to do it? But so far I'm hopeful that the show will keep some pretty good FX. And if it's a little dodgy, we all understand, particularly for guys like you and I who grew up in the Star Trek era. Right. We all know that TV special effects are going to be what they are, and we will forgive a lot.
Yeah. And with that, it's like, some of the CG, watching Superman Returns today, it's like, oh, that's just not good. That's Harry Potter playing Quidditch bad. Right. This show actually, I think, has better effects than the theatrical effects from Superman Returns.
Yes, yeah, and we've come a long way since then. So it's
that's encouraging.
Right. I like that the show seems very reverent, but doesn't take itself too seriously. And like I said, by the time we got to he's walking along talking to General Lane, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so General Lane is kind of like his Perry White, kind of like his, the guy who sends him off places to do things.
Yeah.
And that's his handler in the real world. Okay, I get it. I wouldn't have made it General Lane. I don't know whose idea that was.
Oh, I think it works, though, being his father-in-law.
Right. Which ties to the family stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, I'll forgive that. Okay, another quibble. Why do they have those stupid flip switch things? Why can't we ever get the Superman watch? Right.
Well, I mean, they did that in, Well, they did it on Supergirl. He had the secret watch. So it's like, yeah, they definitely could. Maybe they don't. Maybe they think it's too silly. I don't know.
I think
they're awesome.
You're right. I have a watch that does things like we would all. It doesn't. How's it silly when I have a watch that gives me alerts from my phone? The idea that I would just turn a dial and Superman's thing pops up and I'll press a button just makes more sense than I pull out this big blocky beeper-esque device.
It almost looks like a Kirby. It almost looks like a Kirby device.
It does a little bit, yeah. But it's definitely it's not as cool and aesthetic. Like why lean away from the cool?
Yeah, it's a small ultimate nullifier. Is what that is.
Right. Or from a writer standpoint, they want them to lose it. Down the season, somebody's going to be like, I can't reach the button to tell Superman I'm in trouble, kind of thing is what I'm anticipating. But that's one of my main. I was like, when he pulls that out and he's flipping the switch, I'm like, is that the Superman caller device? Give him a watch. We all just give him a cool device, not a blocky industrial flip switch.
Well, hopefully they'll get to that and say, this would be better, wouldn't it? Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, I upgraded you to a smartwatch.
Yeah.
or a cell phone. They're all carrying cell phones. The reason you needed the watch was because cell phones didn't exist. Superman forgets therapy appointments. That's
no, he was busy during the therapy appointment.
I know. But Superman doesn't make therapy appointments.
And that's the thing where he comes into conflict with taking care of his family, and he has to prioritize because it's the people whose lives have to be saved. Mm-hmm. And that's a choice you have to make. And that's a hard one. That's going to weigh on him as time goes on, because now they're moving out to the farm. Mm-hmm. It's like there's going to be situations like that where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to have to, I'm out in the field and the animals are loose. I have to go. Yeah. It's like, well, some of them are going to get loose. We may lose a few head of cattle.
Right. It's got to be what it's got to be.
That's the price you pay to be Superman.
Right. Understanding that drama is sort of the being pulled between two different forces and having to make a choice, right? The idea that Superman is this character who, now that he has a family, has a responsibility to them, and he also has a responsibility to the world. That, like, oh, okay, you just grounded this series in something really true. Because, I'm a dad who, particularly in this quarantine, like, my kids are in the house all the time. I love them. I love spending time with them. But it's only so much. It's really hard. Nobody was, I don't know, in modern America, we weren't supposed to be around our children 24/7. And that wears on you because they're just a lot. As I was telling you off air before, I have to make this choice. I have to lock myself in this room and do the therapy thing with people. And in doing so, I have to leave them out there. And, there's certain times of the day where they have to, like, not necessarily be raising themselves, but they have to be left to themselves. And so as a father, I understand on a deep level that, oh, do I do my job that takes me out of my family for hours? Or do I prioritize this family unit, particularly when anything happens? Like my son had a doctor's appointment, or He had to get some testing done. And it's like, oh no, I need to be there for you. But I also have this other world I've created for myself that I've obligated my own ego to. Like, I need to do this, not just for the pay, but because I am tied to this work. And there's a part of me that is validated by the work. And so I think that was really good that they grounded the story in just that conflict. Like, what does Superman have to worry about? Oh, his kids. He's got to make sure that they, make it to their doctor's appointments on time and that he has a good connection with them.
Yeah.
In that conversation. Go ahead.
Obviously, he's trying, yes. But it's like not always successful.
Right.
And for somebody like Superman, that's got to be hard.
Oh, yeah. No, he genuinely, when he has that conversation with his mom, what we know who've watched it will be the last conversation he has with his mom. I want to get to his mom in a second. But he says, I don't want to let anybody down. And it's like, oh, man, like, yes, sir, that's me. I get that as a father. And to hear Superman say it is like, oh, ugh.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Lois kind of went about her business, like very business-like, saying it's like, okay, you're ready to do this, dinner's in the oven, and oh, you missed his therapy appointment. Go talk to him. Go apologize to him.
Right.
Like Lois is taking it all in stride. She's like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
Now you got more stuff to do. Go do it.
Right. I think they did a pretty good job. So I am of the mind that there's a lot of family dramedies and comedies where, even in the old Superman and Lois, it's like Lois and Superman can never really get together because you lose the drama once they're a family. I think they're doing a really good job of, oh no, as a family, there's still stuff like, you and I both know as fathers, husbands, it's like the drama didn't stop the day I put that ring on her hand. It began to get bigger, you know what I mean? And there are definitely very good moments of comedy in this relationship that come from just us being, we decided to be in this thing together and the world is absurd, right? And then you add kids to that and it's even more absurd because now I have all these different creatures with agendas in my life that I'm trying to keep together on my agenda. And they're like, no, I want to be an independent creature. Why would you want to do that? Like, there's death around that corner. Like, I'm genuinely trying to stop you from dying. And so, I would have never, if you had asked me before I watched the show, I don't need to see a show where they're married. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But 20 minutes into the show, I'm like, oh, no, they're fine. This is good. I'll watch this. And I'm in. How many episodes do you got? Give me more, please.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see. It's like just on the strength of the one episode, I'm good. Yeah. I'm interested to see how this is going to work over time.
Yes.
Because, they were just starting high school in Metropolis when Mom Kent died.
Yes.
So it's like, oh man, I'm not going to get to start because I missed a week's worth of practice. It's like, yeah, it's going to be worse now that you're moving to Smallville.
Right. Yeah, and so there's a lot of drama to be mined out of that.
That kid's not going to be happy.
Oh, no.
He was going to be the first starting quarterback as a freshman in Metropolis history or whatever.
Right.
I think now he's going to be on the farm.
Right.
Bringing us back to Pa Kent saying, I know you're here for a reason. It's not to score touchdowns. Right.
Nice callback. You can definitely see there's room for a lot of drama. My biggest fear is every Superman show, even if it has a strong start, over time, somebody along the way says, we don't need to keep putting money into writers for this show. Like, it's just how it works with Superman. Like, there's always a curse of the longer it goes, the campier it gets, the more people are like, it doesn't matter, it's a Superman show. And it starts to lose quality over time. And the CW shows, like I said, the first seasons were always great. We could get a great seminal first year of Superman, and then each successive season, we want to distance ourselves from the property because it starts to lose quality.
I never understand that. It's like you're giving up on what made it popular in the first place. Right.
And more often it's, having writers that are super invested and producers who think, no, we got to make this something good, as opposed to, we'll just throw something, just write down, I don't know, bad guy, magic stone, Superman gets shanked by it. Oh, Superman gets shanked. Right. It's Superman versus Lois. So one of the things I appreciated about it is, once again, hopeful, chipper Superman, dark world. And they handle that balance, I think, very well, particularly if you compare it to Cavill's Superman, Man of Steel Superman, where, it was dark Superman, dark world. It's like, no, Superman's supposed to be this beacon of light. And he is in this, but then the world is still really messed up. It's still very jacked up.
Yeah.
And so And I think that's exemplified by whoever this the bad guy is. They said he's a Luthor. They haven't quite said, which iteration or what, but he like totally stabs or Superman with his only piece of kryptonite. Right. Which I'm like, what? And like Superman just got shanked in this. Like it just became a bar fight.
Yeah, he rips it out, and it's like that part where he just recovers right above the guy's car, and he goes,
"Oh yeah,
look, sorry,
yeah. my bad, guy.
At least I didn't smash it."
I love that. I loved that moment of Superman's recovery. Like, oh, okay, fully awake, don't hit the ground. Once again, all those little moments of Superman's abilities, I thought they handled really well. Clark gets fired from the Daily Planet in the first episode. Yeah. And technically, it sounds like Clark's living paycheck to paycheck, which, once again, the historical Superman guy in me is like, no, Clark's a super genius. He's got patents and things. And
better yet, here's a piece of coal.
Right. Right. So Clark never has to worry about money. He's just hanging out with humans because he needs something to do.
And they mentioned the fortress. Say, no, the fortress said that it's unlikely that either one of them are going to have powers.
Yes.
He's got the fortress of solitude. Say, oh, darn, we're broke. Let's go move to the fortress.
Right. Right.
No football team up there, though.
Right. When they're like they were talking about the farm, and they're like, well, you can get bought out. We don't know if we have the money for that. And it's like, you're Superman. You don't have to worry about money. Like, no, I don't believe that. Even as a husband and a father, kids are expensive. They're not Superman level expensive.
Yeah. And I've read arguments saying, well, if you squeeze coal into diamonds, it would upset the diamond market, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
he doesn't do it all the time.
One diamond? No, we're good.
No. I mean, it's Superman. He just solves problems. That's.
Oh, he mustn't use his powers for self blah blah blah. It's like, well, if you don't take care of your family, what really good are they?
Right. Superman should never be underwater financially. That's a hill I'll die on. And he's not Batman, so he's never going to be a millionaire. But it's like he's just comfortable. He doesn't have the same creature, needs that we do. What else? There's another.
Which brings us back to Superman the movie. How did Lois Lane afford that apartment with a penthouse balcony and
right on a newspaper writer's salary? There's no way. There's no way. It's very rare. I feel like Lois and Clark was the first time we ever saw Superman's apartment, or like in TV. We rarely ever saw where Superman lived. It was the fortress or nowhere else. I remember him having an apartment in Lois and Clark. Making himself breakfast in the morning, and I was like, "Oh, Superman has a regular apartment like people." Like,
well, in the comics, it happened all the time. 344 Clinton Street, apartment 3D.
There you go. One thing I want to point out: I was just talking about Dark World. They're doing meth in Smallville now. Like, what? She's talking to Jordan at the quarry, and she's talking about essentially the depressive pallor that is over. And she's basically talking about middle America, right? Like in these sort of small town America, the at a certain age you become kind of depressed and overwhelmed by the environment. And she's like, yeah, and people are doing meth, and so his son is doing benzos, and I'm like, what kind of show am I in?
and the foreclosures and Morgan Edge and all that kind of stuff. It's like, there's our deep conspiracy that we're going to see over.
Yes.
A number of episodes,
Yes, which I'm in for, but also just the transition of, I was just talking to my wife about this. It was like Superman's always about how small town American values meet the big city, and that these people from small town America are essentially salt of the earth, and they're the best of humanity in a way. And they bring this to the dark city where there is crime and destitution and depravity. And this show's like, nope, in Smallville, it's gotten really bad in the past few decades. And we're just going to like embrace that. We're not even going to act like it's not a thing. We're really struggling. Everybody's selling farms left and right. The bank's being taken over. It doesn't even know it. And the kids like to beat in quarries and have beers, and everybody's parents are on meth, and they're burning down houses because they're bad at cooking meth.
Well, I got news for you. I grew up in a small town. It ain't all pretty there. It's not all wholesome salt of the earth people.
Oh, no. I am also I'm actually originally from West Virginia. So I'm from a place called The Bottom. We had dirt roads when I was a small child. And I don't think there's really still even a road there. The trailer that I lived in when my parents moved out it's not still there. It got sold a while back. So it's like, I know that's, the story of the small town nobody tells anymore.
Yeah.
I just didn't think it'd show up in Superman. Like, oh, you're just going to lean into that.
Smallville, you never saw a mobile home in Smallville before.
No.
And now you've seen one with a foreclosed sign. How bad does it have to be before you foreclose on a trailer?
Right. And so I'm looking forward to, okay, we're going to go real world Smallville. Like, we're not going to act like Smallville's this bastion of hope and truth that's out there in the middle of the thing and nobody's dealing with any real problems out there.
It isn't anymore, apparently. So
Right.
Oh, Rich, before we have to stop or something, I want to point out on YouTube there's a video called, oh darn it, is it a small,
you're gonna blank on it now that you have to tell me.
A Smallville Man, and it's set to Foo Fighters Walk. It's an animation done by Mauricio, Abril, I think his name is. You have to watch it. I've linked it on my Facebook page 100 times.
Okay.
Every time Smallville I watch it is. Let me make sure that's right. So go on with what you're doing. I'll look it up real quick.
All right. Yeah. So we wanted to talk a little bit about this is I'll wait until you found the thing, but we did want to talk a little bit about Superman dealing with his son's anxiety.
Yes. A Smallville Man is what it's called. Mauricio Abril. I was right. It is a 5-minute video. It is incredible. It tells the story of how Smallville influenced, how the people of Smallville influenced Clark Kent to become Superman. It's
nice.
Brilliant.
I'm for it. I will be looking at it after we're done here.
In fact, I'm going to send you a link to it.
Oh, please do.
As long as it doesn't autoplay and then I get music.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Right. There we go.
I actually don't have Facebook up right now, but yeah.
Okay.
So we want to talk about Superman dealing with the troubles of as a father of a child with mental illness. A thing you'd never, once again, if I'm thinking of plot lines for Superman, that's not one that comes to mind. But it is a great one because what do you do with the man from tomorrow who has a son today who's got stuff that he can't solve with all his 18 abilities?
Right. My daughter has anxiety. She also happens to be 14. And it's like, I've got to tell you, that one hit me. It's like,
right.
And I don't have to solve the world's problems with, superpowers.
Right.
It's like that balancing act of how much do you push? How much do you step into their lives? How much do you pull back? It's a tricky balance.
Yes.
And when you have Joe Perfect quarterback over here, and he's being kind of a jerk to his brother.
Yeah.
It's like calling him an outcast and a crazy guy and a loser. It's like, that does not make things easier. So how do you handle that? How do you not show favoritism from one to the other?
Right.
All of that. That's
right. How do you balance?
That's the part I'm looking at. I'm like, I want to see how Superman handles that.
Yes.
Before you were talking about special effects, I don't care if they ever show him in costume again. I want to know. It's like, damn, General Lane's calling me. Push. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
I want to see the family drama.
Right.
Honestly, I've seen enough Superman flying around. I'm good.
I'm always here for Superman flying around. So anytime they want to show Superman flying around, even if he's just in flight the entire episode, I will take it. But I agree that once again, that's an angle I wouldn't have thought I would have been as into, but I'm definitely into it watching this show. And once again, it grounds the character in this. How's he going to solve this problem? Knowing that that's what he's going to solve, but how does he navigate it day to day with this kid who, and Jordan comes off as a bit of an empath, a bit of a, he's quirky, and he kind of knew his dad was lying before his dad said anything, right? Like I felt like, when they have that moment in the bedroom where he's like, Superman's boring, I'm not playing as a Superman character in this video game, and he's like, I had a thing, and he's like, I heard, and it's something about the delivery of that which was like, don't tell me another lie, you know what I mean? Like, and how Jordan was the one who was driven to, Dad's not telling us something about the barn, we have to look into this and see what's going on. It's like he knew his dad was hiding something, and just never could articulate it. Now it's in the subtext of the pilot. As always, when you watch a pilot like this and you pick up some of these cues, I'm really curious, are they going to roll with that into further episodes? But I really do think, that some of that dynamic, the pushing his parents away, is because, like you said, brother who's super cool, dad gets along well with brother, but he feels some distance from him. I'm wondering if some of the anxiety isn't because his senses are a little too attuned. Sometimes when we talk about people with anxiety, there was a study that I read 20 years ago or like 10 years ago that was like, sometimes they are a little more attuned to their bodies than the average person is. And so that creates this internal sense of, my heart rate just went up. Now I'm in a panic. Whereas the rest of us, it's like heart rate goes up. It's been up for 5 seconds. I didn't even notice it. What's that about? And we just forget that the stimuli even happened. Whereas people with anxiety, it's like, I'm suddenly in a different state. This might be a panic attack. And then they roll themselves into panic attacks. And so I'm often teaching people, how do you turn down those internal systems? Because, that's part of learning to feel a sense of control over your body when your anxiety is starting to take over. When they're talking about Jordan having anxiety, I'm like, maybe it's because his abilities make him more attuned to stimuli than the average person.
And when you said that, it made me think maybe he's even slightly on the spectrum. Maybe he's having sensory processing problems.
Right.
Because it's like with all that stuff coming in, you don't know how to interpret it. And, every recent iteration of Superman has had him, even in Man of Steel, where it's like, he's seeing through everybody and it's like freaking him out. Right. And that sort of issue.
Like Smallville was one of the ones who did that first. The first time we saw it on TV, it was like, no, that would freak you out to suddenly like, I can see through everything, hear everything at once. Like I'm being overwhelmed by these senses.
Right. And that very well could be a part of it. It's like,
right.
He may not be conscious of it. And he may not be seeing people's skeletons through their hands, but he may be hearing and seeing into the visible spectrum. The non-visible spectrum. You might be seeing infrared and ultraviolet and not realizing it, not realizing what you're seeing.
Right, and being freaked out by it. Absolutely. So I'm definitely looking forward to this show. Like I said, I was into it from the first 5 minutes, and I was like, I think I love this thing. Actually, in my notes that I wrote, I was like, I'm definitely watching this. And then I said to myself, I got to talk to Jim about this because I need another like Superman fan to see it. And I was a little pensive. Anytime you fall in love with something like that, it's like, do you love it as much as I do, Jim? Because if you don't, I'll understand. But I need you to love this.
I'm hesitant. I'm right now. I'm into it. They hooked me.
Right.
But every time they hooked me at the beginning of Man of Steel too.
I've been hurt before.
Right.
Right. We've all been hurt before when it comes to Superman. They let us down, and it's never an easy letdown. It's always a punch in the gut. Like, no, that's not Superman. Ugh.
Yeah. And I always have the thing. It's like, with Man of Steel, for example, it's like they sell these toys in the toy aisle.
Right.
It's like, Superman's not just for kids. Yes, but they're selling costumes for Halloween. They're selling toys in the toy aisle with this version of the character.
Yeah.
Turning him into somebody who is completely oblivious to the property damage and deaths happening around him while he's punching out this other guy from Krypton.
Right.
No.
Right. No, that's absolutely.
And I get the impression that this Superman is not like that.
No, we haven't gotten. I mean, even he's fighting the guy, he takes him into space because that's what Superman would do.
Right. Especially when he got knocked back into that one building, and it's like, the people were all mad and stuff. It's like, no, he'll come back and fix it.
Yeah, he'll be back.
I never thought that about Henry Cavill.
No, it was just wanton destruction. And then he stops to kiss his girlfriend in the middle of a nuclear fallout blast. He's like, let's just have a moment together. It's like, no, this is weird. Don't do that. People have died within a specific radius of you. Like, this is not time for a romantic moment.
For sure. I think we're going to get a better Superman. It's like,
I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. It seems like everything in this pilot episode says they get it. As always, pilots and the full show are different. A whole writing team comes after the first episode and people have different ideas. The show's not without controversy. There was one writer of a woman of color who felt like people of color were underrepresented in the show. She was kicked out of the writer's room. I'm blanking on her name right now. But that was an issue that I'm like, oh, what does this mean for this show now that I've seen it and I'm in love with it? I'm like, oh, so what, do you guys ever correct that problem or was it ignored? I mean, these issues are important to me.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, real quick before we start to wrap up here, J.J. Abrams has been announced to have a Superman movie opportunity and Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to write it. And
that part's good.
Is it? I don't know. I like Ta-Nehisi Coates, but here's what I always say about Ta-Nehisi Coates' writing. Ta-Nehisi Coates' writing isn't dessert and it isn't the meat, but it's often the vegetables, and not everybody likes to eat vegetables. Mm-hmm. Like, he's got some great ideas. I liked his Black Panther run, but it was nobody can do the Priest run, of course. So when you say to me, Ta-Nehisi Coates is writing a Superman, I'm like, but like, who's helping him with that?
Which Supermans are going to be? That's the question.
Right. There's so many questions. And is Ta-Nehisi Coates going to be full Ta-Nehisi Coates? Because he could be really esoteric in a way that's just not translatable to a mainstream property. Like,
but I mean, are they pulling in the Michael B. Jordan idea where it's Black Superman?
Which they've been trying to do. Is that Cal-Zod? Cal? I don't remember what the guy's name is.
Well, Calvin Ellis is one of the
Calvin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, I'm for that, but I don't know. I mean, if you drop it on a streaming service, absolutely, I'll watch it. As the film, can you take that risk? And this is me talking as a Black man who would love to see a Black Superman, but also can we get actual Superman right first? And then I'm totally fine making 18 different iterations of Superman if you could just show me you can get one right, let alone trying another one.
Well, we had that in 1978.
Yeah, well, that's the one we get. And nobody can ever reach that pinnacle again.
Happy that we got that.
We should be.
But, with J.J. Abrams, it's like, oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah.
Destroyed Star Trek for me. Just destroyed Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. You mean Star Wars, the audition?
Right. Exactly that. And then Star, I could talk for 10 hours about Star Wars. It's like,
yeah.
I like a lot of his work. His Mission Impossible work, I liked it.
Mission Impossible work was great.
Like Lost, I liked a lot of that stuff.
I have a lot of frustrations with Lost, but I'll forgive it because it was compelling.
But it's like when he takes over properties that I care strongly about,
he never quit. He does what he wants to do.
So the audience can't see the wall of comics behind me, but most of these are from 1977 to 1979. Let's think about that. 1977, Star Wars. 1979, Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yep.
1978, Superman.
Yep.
So he's going to take these 3 important years of my life, and he's going to put his stamp on every single one of those big movies.
Yeah, and he had a pitch. I don't know if you ever saw anything about the pitch for Superman Flyby, which was his pitch for a Superman movie. I've read some articles about it. I wasn't super impressed by it. I felt like, if we had gotten that instead of Cavill, Snyder, Super Thug, I would have probably liked it better. But I don't quite trust J.J. Abrams. He's, once again, it's a thrill ride that you're often, like with the Star Wars movies. Every one of those Star Wars movies, when I was in the film, I'd be like, well, this is fun. This is not what I want, but it's fun, I guess. And then I get to the end and I'd be like, well, I mean, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
It's still going to make a bunch of money, isn't it? I guess it doesn't even matter how I feel about it. It's all right. We're not, I cannot go down the well that is Star Trek or Star Wars tonight. We could save that for another conversation, which I'll gladly have, because it's a whole thing. Yeah, for sure.
I have many thoughts.
Yes. What you wouldn't be a good nerd if you didn't, Jim McClain. With that, I am going to wrap us up here. It has been a great pleasure talking to you, for sure.
I've enjoyed it too.
I'm glad that we could do this Superman and Lois breakdown of episode 1 of the show and talk about our love for Superman and our love for the show. I love it enough for both of us. Even if you were like, I kind of like it, but I'm not in love. I'm in love enough for the both of us. It's just the type of guy I am. And like I said, I feel like it gave me the Superman I've been dying for, like a starving man, dehydrated man in the desert. They gave me a drop of the Superman, and I'm like, thank you for this manna from heaven. And so I'm glad to be able to chat it up with you about it.
And one last thing, I don't know if you realize that Tyler, what's his name, Hoechlin? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, sure.
The kid from Road to Perdition.
Oh, really?
That's him. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I would not have known that.
Yes. The kid from Road to Perdition. I'm like, you're kidding me.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's how old we are, huh?
Yeah.
I just read that story. This isn't about Tyler Hoechlin, but I just read that story that Gerard Christopher, was that his name? Superboy from the Adventures of Superboy, he tried out for Lois and Clark, and they fired him. He would have gotten it had he told them he was from Lois. He had already been Superboy, but when they found out, they immediately
oh, that's terrible.
Threw him out of the room. Yeah. He tried out for. They were like, "You're doing a great line read. You'd make a great Superman." Then they read his credits and were like, "Wait, you were Superboy? How dare you?"
That's awful.
It is, but it's also, once again, tied up in that whole Superboy, the Salklands, Warner Brothers, DC, all that. I think it would have been great for Lois and Clark to have been, in many ways, for kid me who watched the Adventures of Superboy, to see it graduate to now he is Superman. But Hollywood being what it is, didn't happen. I
wanted to see Tom Welling get a shot.
Oh, absolutely. Tom Welling didn't want to do it. It came from the era of superheroes are dumb and he'll never wear the costume. You'll never see him fly. That thing, I remember that from season 1 of Smallville. He's never going to fly. You're never going to see him in the tights. It was like, I like the tights. Like, okay, so we're all just going to assume one day he will become the tights. 10 seasons later, he still hasn't put on the tights. Like, at some point, he should just put on that. You're calling him the Blur. Just call him Superman. You have the rights.
And I have to say that when Brandon Routh got to play the character in the Crisis crossover that CW did.
Oh my God. I love that.
How come we couldn't have that for Superman Returns? Because he did a great job. It's like,
he did a great job.
I always thought he did a good job doing Christopher Reeve, and he could have subtly made the character his own as time went on.
Yes.
But it's like, for what that movie was, a love letter to Superman, the movie, it was fine.
It was fine. Yes.
And the thing is, I've seen him in other things. It's like, he's actually really good.
He is. Like, there's a moment in the Crisis of Infinite Earths, and maybe we can come back and talk about that later. But he's giving a speech. He's in full Superman mode. He's giving a speech. It's right before Lex takes over his body and kicks him out the show. He's like, well, this is the way it's going to be. This is what we need to do. And it's like, he's like full on Superman right now. And then they kick us in the gut and pull him out, and never to be seen for the rest of the episodes. And I'm like, how dare you? Like, you had Brandon Routh. Just use him. I'll watch 4 hours of that. Like, if they would have spun him off into his own show, I don't care if it comes on HBO Max or what. They just give me 15-minute episodes of him solving old guy Superman problems. I am here for it. Like, absolutely. So yes, I was a fan of Brandon Routh and would have gladly handed over the reins to him. Tyler has definitely grown on me. Like I said, from the minute he stepped on the scene as Superman in the show, I was like, okay, if you give him a show, I'll watch it. Now that we have his show, I'm definitely going to be watching it week to week. I would love to have you back on as the show develops a little more. I'm not good enough at this to keep up a week to week rotation. It's really hard for me to keep these podcasts every week. Right. But I would gladly have you on again if you'd love to. Yeah. Let's talk about the show going forward, and keep up this conversation, man, because this has been great. I really appreciate it.
And then we need to talk about the Superman.
Oh yes, we will definitely talk about Superman Smashes the Klan. Absolutely. The book you mentioned to me, which I heard about but never really dove into. Me and comics are on a love-hate. When I see something I really love, I pick it up either digitally or I've made it, well, not in the last year, once again, in that way that COVID has had me to forget. Like, when was the last time I was at a comic shop? Over a year ago. Me too. But I would sort of wander in every now and again, because there was a time in my life where Wednesday was the I have to go to the shop day. And so occasionally I'll get that craving of, it's a Wednesday. I got time. I should go to the shop. I should check out what they got. But I'm definitely going to go check out Superman Smashes the Klan. Thank you so much for your time today, Jim McClain. It's been great.
I appreciate you having me. I've enjoyed every minute. Thank you.
Yes. It's good to talk about Superman with a fellow Superman junkie like myself. And I definitely appreciate all your asides. You're way more knowledgeable about the pre-1980s stuff. And I love that.
That's my jam.
Right. Have you ever seen Mark Waid do his like Superman or any, if you've seen him do his shtick where he does trivia? On comics, I've seen that at a couple conventions. At Rosemont, that was the first time I saw him do it, and it was like mind-blowing. Like, they just throw out any fact about the Legion of Superheroes or old Superman stuff, and he just drops he could drop you a year it was published, month, like, oh, that happened in issue number 471, and you're like, how do you like genuinely do that?
Yeah, the last, it's kind of funny because I've talked to him several times, and it's like the last time I saw him, he goes, he drew a blank on my name. I said, you know Arm Fall Off Boy's real name, but you can't remember mine. He said, if your arm could fall off and put it back on, I'd remember your name too.
Nice. I have also gotten a couple times to talk to him. He's a really great, one of my favorite writers of all time. So only right below Christopher Priest, who won me over with his Black Panther run and several others. But he's a great writer. And I wonder what his thoughts about this show are. One of the things I do like about being in the internet age is many of our favorite writers and producers are on Twitter. So you occasionally get like these little snippets of, I approve of this thing that you also like. And you're like, oh, that's validating.
Yeah.
So like getting to see that Christopher Priest was a big fan of the Black Panther movie was like, oh, okay, thank you. I'm glad to know that he, he's out there still doing some writing and that he appreciates this thing that was in some ways somewhat of a homage to his work.
Right.
Which was, like I said, my seminal Black Panther run. But yeah, I got to go ahead and go. I got other things I got to get to. But like I said, it's been great talking to you, man. This is a pleasure, and we're definitely doing it again.
Thank you for having me. I'd be happy to come back anytime you want.
All right, man. You take care.
All right, you too.
Love to the kids and the wife, or kid and the wife.
The and family. Yours as well.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. See you.
Bye.
The Hallspace Podcast is brought to you by Hall Productions, LLC. Show notes and credits can be found at our webpage, thehallspacepodcast.wordpress.com. Any questions, comments, or concerns can be sent to us at thehallspacepodcast@gmail.com. The show is written by Daggerpin Davis. Music is curated by DJ Cabal. The show is produced by Chuck Jones and recorded at Slash and Trash Studios. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a good week. House Hall. We rise brilliantly.